on the Sword Zenny channel. Zenny has tech problem. Tech problem become avatar problem. Now avatar problem become identity crisis. We now return to the commentary. I had the weirdest dream. My laptop screwed over our avatars and there was 2 of me.
Before you freak out a second time, just let me explain. Thank you. Turns out you didn't really send our avatars through the trash, you sent them to another universe. And apparently this guy has it.
What he said. The name's Alakanth. Nice to meet ya. Yeah! The heck was that? Are you copying me? Okay, you can stop now. This gag is really old. Rock, paper, scissors. Ow!
Alright, settle down. If you guys want to keep your normal bodies, you'll have to wait here while I get a portal ready to ditch the brony trash. Your bodies should be fully stabilized by the time I'm done.
Well, just sitting here is no fun. If only I had some commentary.
You know, I was made to do more than provide exposition and commentary fodder, but I guess this is my life now. Enjoy the stinking commentary or whatever it is.
Wait, what's a commentary? Basically point out flaws in a video. Wanna try it out? Sure, why not? Howdy everyone, this is Sword Zenny, at the helm to analyze the idiocy. What the heck? Just stick to the script. Allow me to introduce you to Joshscorcher. He likes to make countdowns and review episodes of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. We'll be taking a look at his review on Fame and Misfortune, an episode of MLP that's infamous for indirectly addressing the cartoon's fanbase. Now that you're up to speed, let's roll!
And to add to the surprise, Twilight suggests publishing the journal so that ponies all over Equestria can read about their adventures and learn from their mistakes as well. Now, this is a good idea on paper, allowing others to benefit from their mistakes. However, it takes away the trial and error aspect of relationships. Friendships aren't perfect because we aren't perfect, and having problems in our relationships help us grow as both friends and people. So, having what basically amounts to a cheat sheet for any problems that may come up may actually hinder a relationship because they never actually develop those problem-solving skills for themselves.
Not exactly. No one is saying the contents of the journal are mandatory. It's more like giving advice. And even then, the trial and error is still present regardless of whether you've taken advice related to the situation. Consider the following. Say you're getting bullied for the first time, and you are aware of the following options. Should you sort things out with words, ignore the bully, or do you require some assistance? There's a good chance there are more options I haven't listed, but the point is you can be well aware of those methods, yet you still won't know 100% of the time if they'll work.
I want to know why Fluttershy keeps learning the same thing over and over again. Because they're already!
Even I've learned more than she has. What can I be in a book?
You can see where the episode's going, can't you? This episode is one giant take that towards bronies, specifically the more critical side, with the journal representing the show and the townsfolk representing the fandom. We'll get to each individual point as they come, but for now, this question regarding Fluttershy's need to repeat a lesson is one that's been asked by a lot of fans over the years.
The episode's response?
Listen up! I am more assertive. And yes, it took me a while to get there. But can you honestly say that you could learn something one time and completely change who you are? I didn't think so. That's
a very valid reason. That's very true to people in real life.
Kermit, what are you doing?
I'm dancing, bro! I have to give the writers credit. They made me like Fluttershy a little bit more. As a person. As a character in a serialized episodic TV show, using the whole last verse same as the first storylines that they use for the majority of the main 6 is still pretty annoying.
No one in this episode acknowledged how this repetition is bad for a cartoon series or the book, just that there was repetition. In fact, the moral about being assertive is less copy-paste than you might think. Each episode starring Fluttershy have different forms of conflict, such as stage fright or being too assertive, along with different scenarios and methods to apply it. Not to mention, other characters often repeat their morals in the same way Fluttershy does, such as Applejack with family and honesty, Rainbow Dash with humility, etc. And that's ignoring how she does apply what she's learned in episodes like Dungeons and Discords, Flutterbriar, and Scaremaster.
So is Rarity stress dose, because apparently that's a thing. Applejack bursts into Rarity's shop with an order for 100 blankets.
I'm popular, Twilight. I'm popular and I don't like it one bit. They call themselves the Sweet Apple Admirers. They say they read my journal entries and they felt like a part of the family. And now they actually want to become part of the family.
I mean, this is more positive than the other experiences. You know, being laughed at, being attacked, being hounded by fans, being outright boycotted. I'd say troublesome squatters aren't really that bad considering, and I'm glad that these ponies are focusing on the good things about friendship. You know, like a closeness and how fulfilling friendship and family are.
Yeah, can I just point out how none of the admirers are doing any work? They're just helping themselves to anything that isn't nailed to the ground. If the admirers really did focus on the positive aspects of Applejack's journal entries, the apples should be the one relaxing. Work would be done much faster and everybody wins. But nope, these admirers are just wasted space, practically treating the Apple family like slaves.
So Twilight tries to engage the townsfolk in civilized discussion.
What I mean is, some ponies would argue that it doesn't seem believable that the six of you would be friends.
Believable?
Well, sure. I read this journal cover to cover, and I have to say, your character would have been much more interesting if she'd stayed in Candlelight.
My character? We are real ponies. This journal is a record of things that actually happened to us.
Hasbro? Are you under the delusion that your characters are real?
What? I'm about to have an existential crisis. When was the last time you heard me say cartoon?
I know you're trying to put forth the metaphor that the journal represents the show because a lot of what these detractors say are criticisms that the fandom has made, but newsflash, we're talking about fantasy pastel colored ponies having adventures in a magical land, not real people in the real world.
Just because there are cartoon characters, that doesn't mean they aren't real in the context of that cartoon. Yes, the residents can be seen as a metaphor for the MLP fanbase, but the townsfolk were arguing about how believable the stories were, and took things too seriously. Allow us to prove this by addressing the complaints from the figurative fans that are conveniently in this one scene.
We made mistakes, and we learned from them.
What about Rarity? Were we really supposed to believe she learned anything she wrote in there?
Not really. Subjectivity is a thing. Even then, lots of people are capable of feeling and doing things you wouldn't expect them to do. Big Mac is a great example of this. He isn't the sort to run his mouth, but there are occasions where he'll say much more than yes or no.
That's why you want to be Team Dash! She's the only one who didn't really need to learn anything, because she was already so cool.
Let's see. Enjoying something doesn't devalue you as a person. Earning respect. Good intentions can still have negative results. Should I go on?
Twilight was better before she got wings.
Not only is this subjective, but being a princess doesn't do anything to her character any more than it does her status or role in her world.
Fluttershy is just so painfully shy, it's hard to relate. I mean, come on!
So? You don't have to relate to a main character, and there are others who would relate to Fluttershy more than you would.
The metaphor doesn't work if you use it like that. I mean, it could work if you were telling us that there are real people behind artistic creations, so being harshly critical and rude to these people is wrong. And that's a totally fair message.
It says the metaphor wouldn't work the way it did in the show. It says it could work the way it did in the show. Huh? Even your suggestion for how it could work sounds confusing, because you say the episode should show there are real people behind an artistic creation, and being mean to them is wrong, but what's the main conflict here? The main characters are being scrutinized because of something they— Hang on, Zenny. He was about to say the townsfolk in the show were extremely negative and had next to no variation, the exception being the two fillies introduced at the start of the episode. Well, that doesn't excuse the poor wording before that, as he is excusing the episode of something it isn't guilty of. Speaking of which, if the mob in the episode is supposedly representing the brony fandom, wouldn't they actually represent the highly negative fans? Before everyone grouped up to antagonize the main six, no one was trying to cause conflict. First, some ponies exchanged thoughts, focused on specific places of the story, all of which escalated over time. So in reality, the writers at Hasbro did focus on more than one form of negativity.
Another thing that rubs me the wrong way is that the show seems to be trying to place itself on a pedestal, like saying it's above criticism.
Yeah, but the purpose of the journal isn't supposed to be marketing.
Really?
Well, what if it wasn't meant to be compared to Hasbro in general? The company that owns MLP may be focused on cash, but the writers of the show can still have differing viewpoints. Because the main six don't act as a hive mind or have any corporate motives, it seems more likely the comparison is with the staff, not the company.
Kermit, what are you doing?
I'm dancing, bro!
So then we get a musical number about treating people kindly despite their faults. Great message, guys. Seriously. I just have to ask this question, though. Who is this moral for? Seriously, who are you talking to with this? The detractors? No one in the fandom is under the delusion that these characters actually exist. To remind the Main Six that they're imperfect? They already know that. The kiddies at home to show them that they are imperfect and still have things that they need to work on? Well, yeah, that's an excellent moral. But the message of the song and the plot of the episode aren't congruent. How are they supposed to learn the moral when you don't set up a scenario where it actually applies?
It actually does. The townsfolk got on their case for being flawed, and the song basically says to embrace those imperfections.
Kermit, what are you doing?
I'm dancing, bro!
Oh, and if you thought that was rock bottom, check this out. It's shown later in the episode that the only two ponies who get it are the children, who are colored like previous generation MLP ponies.
Though it might seem that way, the reason only those two were brought in was because Starlight was looking for those two specifically. There could have been some ponies in the mob that were enlightened by what Twilight had to say, but couldn't stand up for her and her friends because of those who were still bickering. Heck, there could have been others that share the same thought as those two fillies long before the journal went public, but were either too far away or didn't interact with the Main Six enough to be noticed. It's even more fitting in the episode for those specific fillies to be chosen. They were shown multiple times fighting, both of which Twilight intervened, and haven't been fighting ever since Twilight gave them a copy of the journal. There is a clear contrast between the kids and the mob, but you're focusing on the negative interpretations instead of giving both sides a fair fight.
Now, they probably didn't mean it this way, but that seems to be saying that the only people who are allowed to enjoy the show are the children. Like, it's not for us, so we can't criticize it.
Whee! Roses are red. The curtains are blue. Why would you do this to me? I know you like to look deeper into things, but this is appalling. Just in time for final thoughts. Josh, for all this talk about misconstruing words, you do a lot of that here yourself. This review came off as preachy, Zootopia levels of preachy. I know the MLP fandom has gotten a bad rap, but I get the impression this episode made you pretty hostile. From manipulating context to focusing on the negative aspects of your fanbase analogy, this episode did not paint you in a good light. Speaking of which, we can even extend this further to the two recurring fillies in Fame and Misfortune, where you might see them as only kids can like the cartoon. I can see them as a positive side of the fan base. I suggest taking a look at both sides of the coin. Don't just think about your stance on the topic. Try adjusting thoughts that contrast with your own.
I heard explosions! What happened?
Okay, Scott.
What the—
And you're no longer unconscious. I was unconscious?
Ah, who cares? Now we can send Alicanth home.
How about we grab something to eat on the way? I heard there's an ice cream shop in between space-time. How does that— You know what? Sure.